everyone, welcome back to the Roker Rapport. Since we last got together, it's been about 2 weeks actually, and in that time Sunderland have managed to lose not once but twice. Fantastic. First against Leeds, I went to that match and I've got a lot to say about the atmosphere in the Stadium of Light at the moment, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And then again against Barnsley, we got our asses handed to us. It's fair to say that everybody's feeling a bit wound up about it, to be honest. I'm a bit disappointed with the way things have started this season. But I'm joined today with a couple of lads to talk about it. We've got Gav, we've got Graham, we've got James, and we've got James again. So we've got Copley and Jimmy. How you guys doing?
Oh, good, mate.
Very well, not bad.
Good. Oh, it's all very low, isn't it? It's all very depressed. Very self-piteous. Right, well, let's talk briefly then, if we can be bothered to go over that shite again. Let's talk about Barnsley, shall we, because it was most recent. Jimmy, what do you make of Barnsley, man? What do you make of that game? Because I thought it was fucking awful.
That was crap, wasn't it? Absolutely rubbish. I mean, if Leeds was a wake-up call, God knows what that was. It was absolutely dire. Let's be honest here, that Barnsley are shit. You know, they're not very good. I mean, they were mooted for relegation, and they made us look like mugs at times. You know, it was just a bit of a collapse, which shouldn't be surprised about. You know, we had a decent enough start. You know, but we didn't really threaten. We didn't really create anything. Our biggest chance really came from when a Barnsley defender almost put it in his own net. I mean, 4-4-2, it worries me a little bit. I mean, other than that opening 30 minutes, Barnsley kind of ran the whole midfield. And Dong's passing was awful. Katz did absolutely nout. And when you've got a man leading line in James Vaughan, I mean, we just look toothless. I mean, he runs around a lot, and you know, but he just doesn't have any quality. He has no composure. McGeady had no impact. I mean, Lewis Grabham, I guess, probably our best player on the day. Grayson's subs didn't really have any impact on the game. I don't know if that's down to lack of options or a bit of naivety from his tactics, but we were just really poor. I mean, defensively we looked unorganised. Billy Jones was really dire. He was completely shown up at right back. Still no clean sheets this season. For the second goal, you say Reuter should probably do better. He probably should have done better for the opening 2 goals, really. Browning should have challenged better as well for the second. Honeyman, he was fairly poor, really. I mean, maybe we're expecting too much from the lad. You know, if we want to be pushing to be a top 6 side, then expecting someone like George Honeyman to have an impact every week is probably a bit naive on our part. You know,
maybe a bit premature, though.
Yeah, I reckon so. And I think you just look at our side and you look at all the sides who've gone up in the past seasons. They've all had goal scorers. You know, Gale for the Mags, Glenn Murray for Brighton. Was it Gray for Burnley when they went up? Troy Deeney for Watford when they went up. So who are we relying on? James Vaughan. I mean, give us a break, man. I mean, we're desperate for a front man. We're desperate for a decent striker. And if we didn't have a bell end as an owner, I'd hope we'd have some money to spend. But it's got me a bit frustrated looking at like the start of the season we've had, and I thought there's a lot of optimism come back. Really, really keen to have a good season. We're all behind Grayson, and all he needs is a bit of money to spend. Going in this last week and a half or something to bring some players in, because on that display, that squad is far too weak. It really is.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think we all knew, didn't we? We all knew it was a very weak squad anyway, and I think we were a bit spoiled for choice when, just a bit spoiled in general when Grabham came in and he started performing quite well. And obviously McGeady, I think we were very lucky to get away with that, regardless of how the rest of the transfer window worked out. What about you, Copley? What do you make of it, mate? What do you make of that Barnsley game?
Terrible, obviously, and just to follow on from the kind of squad dissection, I think it's disappointing that the likes of Gooch and Kazri coming off the bench couldn't really make an impact. Like Lyndon Gooch was largely anonymous. He couldn't kind of capitalise on that good performance against Carlisle. Don't really know where Kazri's head's at the moment. And I've seen a lot of criticism around saying that Grayson doesn't have a plan B. And I think that it is a fair criticism, but what I would say is that I don't think he has the personnel to implement a plan B. I don't see where the plan B comes from. And it's a bit worrying that Barnsley kind of outworked and outran Sunderland when we were kind of hoping to build our season about being hard workers and kind of battling and struggling away, and they just outworked us completely. And after the first 20 minutes, we ran out of ideas.
I mean, it wasn't just that. Is it fair to say that there was after the first goal went in, there was a general lethargy that overtook the squad? Something that I haven't seen since last season.
Definitely.
And that's something that was a big concern. I mean, going back to the Leeds game as well, we saw it then when their first goal went in, and it is this sort of like they've given up immediately, and that wasn't there for the first few games that they were in. But I mean, after a while, like 2-3 times of really getting stick for it as well, and not to mention the stick they get afterwards. We've seen there's been quite a few photos going around recently, apart from the thing that happened with Darren Gibson, which some argued that actually was a good thing. Another photo was doing the rounds after the Barnsley game, and all sitting there chilling out and having a beer, and there's mixed opinions on that. It's not really controversial, but certainly some people have some bad things to say about, some bad words about that. I mean, me personally, I'm just gutted. I'm gutted about the whole situation that we're in. The Barnsley game was crap, but I wasn't expecting a lot, to be honest with you. I wasn't expecting some sort of huge change. I was expecting us to win. I will say that. I wasn't expecting to be completely pasted, particularly with some of the better starts we've had. So going back to what you were saying about Honeyman, actually, like I was taking some notes of the game anyway when I was watching it, and I've noted that he was actually impacting really well at the start of the game, and I don't think that performance is a good barometer to judge him at the moment. I don't think it was too premature to call him in. I think it's probably, well, at the end of the day, if we were in the Premier League, for example, we would be sending him to a championship club. So it's not like this league is, and if we weren't sending him to a championship club, then we'd probably be looking at moving him on. So he's either good enough or he isn't, and this is the level he has to be capable of playing off if he's good enough. Gav, though, what about you, mate? What do you make of the whole scenario, that whole awful detritus?
I just think it's
detritus coming into the Roker Rapport. Big words.
I would say that it just kind of highlights the issues that we've kind of got off the pitch at the minute in regards to personnel. It was obviously going to be difficult for this group of players to carry on that good start they had, because ultimately it's difficult to play at that tempo with the same players. Obviously, we pointed this out before, but it's going to always be the case until we have other players to bring in. The creative players that we've got on the bench either aren't cutting it, or we just don't have them. Kasri, for instance, doesn't want to be here. Although you kind of get a mixed message from that Instagram post he made, but I think it's pretty clear he's probably not going to be here on deadline day. I think even if a club comes along with a loan offer, I think we'd probably be accepting that, just in the kind of the way we did with Lens as well. Grayson said that he doesn't want players who don't want to be here, and I'm not entirely sure where Kasri's at, but something's not right there. He's not performing at the level that he was even under Allardyce, and obviously he had a great pre-season, and everyone was expecting him to at least be a big player in the first month of the season, until he left. And he's been anonymous, I guess. I don't know whether he was just expecting to be playing every week, and his effort levels have dropped off, but ultimately something's not right, and it goes across the board. I think we're light in attack. The forwards we've got are do-a-job players, but we don't need players that do a job. We need someone who's going to hit the back of the net when the chances come.
I think that's it, isn't it? The main focus really has to be on transfer.
Do they do a job?
Well, I would say that there's a purpose for a player like Vaughan in a squad where you maybe have four forwards. I think when you're trying to hold a lead, that's the type of player you bring off the bench. But I mean, as a starter every week, absolutely not.
No.
Grabbing again when you're playing 3 games in a week does have a purpose in the squad. I think he's definitely got goals in him, but he's not a Rhodes or a McCormack, that type of player who we've been linked with, where they've got a record and a reputation for nabbing goals, and that's kind of all they do on the pitch.
I guess he scored 24 for Bournemouth when they went up, so he has got pedigree. I guess it's just like when you've got Nout around you.
That's it. There's no challenge there, and I think
we did see Vaughan bottle that header, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? Which was which is a really like bad indicator for him as far as I'm concerned.
He isn't just bottling headers, though. He is getting half chances and not making anything of them. And I think we've kind of been spoilt in the past with Jermaine Defoe, for instance. You know, finding goals from nothing. We just don't have a player like that anymore. But those players do exist at Championship level. Newcastle had Dwight Gale last season, who was very much that type of player. We've got to now find somebody before the deadline shuts, I guess, who can do that for us. But I think what you touched on before as well, Jim, was pretty important. There isn't a supply line either. Aidan McGeady is a very, very good footballer, but he cannot be the only person that we have in our squad that can offer something to the attackers. It's just not going to happen. He's in his 30s. We can't reasonably expect him to play every game at a high level, even in the Championship. And I would say from my point of view, I think an attacking player who can add not only goals but assists is just as important as a forward now, because obviously we don't have enough quality. And you're looking at other teams in the league who are struggling with similar issues. You know, I've seen, for instance, Norwich are really badly struggling this season, and they actually have creative players, but their manager chooses not to use them. And I'm just looking at us and I'm thinking, you know, it would be. I mean, I wouldn't mind us going and getting someone like Houlihan from Norwich if they're not going to use him. But I mean, we just have there's some major surgery needs to be performed before that deadline closes. There's obviously there's an issue off the pitch funds wise, and I mean, am I being unreasonable trying to expect that we actually sign some players? Because, I mean, as we record this, it's 3 days before the window shuts, and absolutely nothing's happening. I mean, if it was, I'm sure we'd know about it, because the club know from a PR standpoint that the fans would like some positive news.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing if not transparent these days, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, I know Grayson keeps his cards close to his chest, but I think when we have signed players so far this season, we've known about it well in advance, especially from like our point of view as a site. It's been pretty easy preparing all of our content around the signings because we've known what's coming. And I think that does worry us slightly, because I think we're just going to scramble around and see what we can get on the last day, which is really not a beneficial transfer policy from my point of view. I think that we have to be a little bit more considered with our approach to signings, even if we haven't got money. We did sign players who, you know, I think Grayson clearly wanted McGeady, for instance, and from what I've been told, he took a lot of cutting money in order to come here. Everton wanted £2 million for him. That's why it took so long to get over the line, because that was a player who really wanted to come here. But I think we've exhausted all of those links. I think from Grayson talking about, you know, players wanting to come to Sunderland, his phone ringing off the hook and things like that, from agents of players who want to sign for Sunderland. I mean, what's going on? We can't be waiting to sell players like Kazri just to make a loan sign, for instance. Surely we can't be that skint.
No, I mean, but unfortunately, before we touch on this, because we've obviously there's a lot to be said about it, as you can tell from Gav's exuberance. Graham, what did you make of the match, mate? Just before we get really into the nitty gritty.
I think Cattermole afterwards summed it up quite well. I think it summed up the club as a whole. I think we don't have the ability on the ball, and I think when we're not on the ball, the attitude's wrong. And I think I count a lot of players into that. I could kind of go over the points the lads have made already, but I think if I'm honest with you, I just think the attitude evidently stinks with some players. You can see it. They don't work hard. They don't care. They're not bothered about being here. They haven't been for a while, certain ones. But I think you can kind of get away with that if the ability's there, but I don't actually think we've got that much ability in the squad. I mean, if you write it down on paper, which players are genuinely like top-level Championship players, I don't think there's that many. I really don't think there is.
What you mean in the squad?
Problem. Yeah, I generally think that. I think you know they've shown over the first 5 games that some of them are not high-level Championship players, and the name possibly is like people like Cattermole and stuff like that, but they haven't looked a level above, have they? Like none of them have, apart from say probably McGeady and I'd say Ndong at a push.
I don't know. I mean, I think we've seen dribs and drabs, haven't we? We've seen flashes of what they're capable of. I think, particularly with Ndong, he can have so much composure one moment and then he can lose it all the next. And I think that's very much to do with his support, similar to what we were saying earlier about McGeady. He's not because he may very well be our only creative attacking outlet. He's the sort of person that we can't overly rely on. We can't, for a start, we shouldn't be in a position where we have to rely on him game after game after game as the only person that the attack is moving through. But beyond that, relying on him to track back defensively. Saw him working in our box against Barnsley, and I know we were on the back foot towards the second half of the game for some reason. But he didn't have to be there, and it seemed like they were all very, very worried about each other. Not in a good way. Do you know what I mean? Not like, I better look out for me mates.
Sorry to jump in, Damo, but does it not remind anyone a little bit of Martin O'Neill? Like, your best creative attacking player sitting on the edge of the box trying to play from there. It does worry us a little bit. That I don't know whether maybe if we do recruit some better players that can push us higher up the pitch, we might see less of that. But it was like watching an O'Neill. It's
interesting because he's in that sort of it's that traditional British tactic, isn't it? You know, like because we're not saturated with creative attacking players. There's a sort of what's the word? It's just like a need, an urgency to have them replay the same role over and over again. When you say about O'Neill, like it's a bit like McLean, wasn't it? When McLean came in, it was like it was brilliant for the first 6 games. And then after 6 games, everybody knew what he was about. Everybody knew what was going to happen when McLean came on.
That's spot on, that demo, because one thing I worry about there, and talking about McGeady dropping so far back, is teams will have watched us for like the first couple of games and will have seen that he's by far our most creative outlet. So if they're doubling up or tripling up on him, then he's going to have to drop deeper and deeper and deeper just to get the ball to try and impact the game. And by not having any sort of depth in creative talent, you're always wasting like the attacking talent you do have. I think it's really frustrating, because I reckon he must be equally as frustrated, seeing the joy he had in the first couple of games and now seeing that, he's obviously got a lot more attention, so he's not got much time at all.
I think it's interesting if you look at the players like Oviedo and Billy Jones and being kind of a squad player in the Premier League or having a kind of steady Premier League career for a number of years doesn't necessarily mean that you can drop down to the Championship and be a world beater, because you kind of need a few different attributes in the Championship, and there's different things you need to look out for. And I think Billy Jones and Oviedo coming down and not being world beaters has kind of taken us aback a bit, but I think these players may have found the level, to be honest.
I think it is fair enough someone said during the game, I think it was Gav talking about actually how awful our fullbacks really were, and I mean on a related note, but the reality of it, on a related note to that, why can't we solve the issue about our fullback? Why can't we solve this fullback issue? Why can't we get someone in who is just good at both, just who can defend and attack? It doesn't seem to be difficult for any other team, but it seems to be really difficult for us. And when we get one, we seem to either get them on loan and can't be prepared to, and we're not prepared to pay for them afterwards, even if it's a pittance. I'm talking about like Marcus Alonso style thing, or we get a player like Patrick Van Aanholt who can do one thing but not the other. We just can't seem to fix that issue, and that was very evident in the Barnsley game. That was evident that both our fullbacks were shite.
We're saddled with Billy Jones, aren't we? I think, I think in a manager like Grayson actually probably appreciates the good things that Jones brings to the team, which is obviously his work rate, and he's definitely a committed player, but he's just not good enough, is he? And he's got a big downside there, which he's lack of pace. He's not great at stopping crosses. He doesn't contribute at all offensively, which is a major issue when we don't have width in our team. It's, I think, another priority position, a right back, but of course we have 3. None of them are particularly great. He obviously doesn't trust Donald Love too much because he played him centre mid in the cup against Carlisle, and he played all right, but I mean we haven't seen him feature all that much at right back since Grayson came along, even in pre-season, and it's kind of a worry for me that we're going to go into the season with those 3. I do think maybe one of Matthews or Love could leave, but I don't see us recruiting anybody. And when Watmore's back, he could certainly do with a good attacking fullback in behind him who can get past and help add to the attacks, because we are going to see a different Sunderland come a couple of weeks' time. I just think we have to prepare ourselves for the players coming back. The likes of Watmore are going to be very, very important at this level, but ultimately he needs support down that side as well. We can't expect miracles of him, just as we can't expect miracles of McGeady. And we still don't have a lot of balance. There's not a lot of pace there. But at fullback, I think it's pretty much essential at any level of football now that your left and right backs can get forward and attack. And obviously, Oviedo, I think, will come good this season provided he stays fit. But Billy Jones he has days where he's a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, where you think, hey, he played all right today, but I mean, when does he ever stand out or really contribute anything?
Never.
He's just there, isn't he?
All right. And thing is with just quickly on the fullbacks as well, like the mistakes that they're making are so basic, lads. Like, stop the cross. Aren't you taught that from like a really early age? Just stop the supply. Just stop crosses coming to the box. And it was all afternoon. They were just shelling balls into the box, and they didn't seem to be getting in their faces against like Derby and against Norwich and against Sheffield Wednesday to a certain extent. They were in people's faces, and they were trying to stop the supply. Where on Saturday it seemed like, I don't want to say complacency, but
it can't be complacency. It must be. I know what you're saying.
David, we know what Sunderland are like, where they think they've cracked it and they win a couple of games or they put some decent performances together, and then maybe they just think, we'll step back a bit.
I'm concerned. I didn't really think about it before you brought this up, but I'm concerned. What if that's an effect of Grayson? What if Grayson's pinning them in that place? Because you're saying like in the match previous or in the cup, a couple of weeks before that, they were in people's faces. And now they're not. I mean, I was going to say it's because they're crap and they wouldn't know how to get in someone's face, but they do. They can do it. They know what they're supposed to do. And as you say, it's the first thing you learn as a fullback or as a defender in general to stop the supply. So it's interesting that they wouldn't be doing that at all. Surely that's a command given to them. It's not like something that they couldn't be that bad, surely, is what you...
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily aim it at Grayson, though, because these are players that Moyes had the same problem last year. I mean, obviously he had a lot of shortcomings as well, but, we've seen this for years. I think the manager can only do so much. I think Grayson certainly has some things he has to answer for this match, but, we're still all 100% behind him, and I still think he'd be a good manager.
I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything like that. Yeah, I also think we have to be wary of not being too into that mentality, like, we can't badmouth the manager because it might somehow affect him. It's not going to affect him what we say about him. So I think we have to be wary of not blaming him. We absolutely should be wary of getting the pitchforks out and that. But I think equally we have to be very careful with the way we're like, we can't. We've got to give him more time. We've got to give him more time. Yes, he does need more time, but it's never too early to start questioning somebody's tactics, I think.
No, I think that he's obviously hamstrung by the players he's got. Obviously, the lack of options he's got isn't helping anybody, and it means that he's kind of had to settle on a formation and hope it works. I mean, against Carlisle, he played 5 at the back, and we looked all right going forward, but I mean, defensively, we were shocking. And I worry. I know that wasn't with our strongest team, but I worry that he's probably been put off from that performance from a defensive aspect, and we'll stick with what we've been doing, and it's kind of backfired the last couple of games. But I mean,
how bad's Gillabodgy for him to not even get a look in? Like,
I'm not even joking when I say this. I've watched him twice. I mean, I saw him in pre-season a little bit, but I watched him for the under-23s when me and Copley were there watching that. And then again in the cup, and I don't think I've seen 2 worst defensive performances back to back like that. I mean, he is really, really bad. I don't think it's a confidence thing either. I just think ability-wise he hasn't got it. He's obviously very athletic, big lad. His long passing's not too bad, but I mean, as a defender, he is appalling. Just appalling.
Against the under-23s, he wasn't even kind of bullying the Tottenham forwards, and he's a big lad.
He actually got bullied. He got bullied himself, didn't he?
And he was making stupid mistakes, like simple things against under-23s, and it was just a bit of a joke, really.
Yeah, he's got serious issues there, and I don't think he's got any future. I think that the club are really saddled with him now for the length of his contract, unless we're prepared to take a big cut. And that's not going to happen, because it just looks bad on their part if they cut the ties with any player they've paid a lot of money for. And I think he especially is just indicative of the bad business we've done in the last couple of years. He's just a very limited footballer who we obviously done no research on, Obviously, no background check on his ability whatsoever, because at his age, you should be getting a player in the prime, not somebody who clearly needs a lot of coaching just to be borderline acceptable in terms of what they're capable of doing.
Didn't Moyes say he'd been scouting him for years as well, like he'd had a dark.
No, I'm not entirely. Well, maybe he said something along those lines, but what I believe was the case was that we were always targeting him even when Allardyce was there, and it wasn't necessarily a Moyes signing. Oh, right. So, I mean, if that is the case, then it just shows you, doesn't it, the way things have been.
Yeah, we do need to have a fat chat about what's going on in our recruitment system, things like that. I mean, before we get more into transfers, we've got some questions from some of you lovely people on Twitter. So, and one of them on this note, talking about the fullbacks, Pete Cran, he's asking, do players need to be able to be more adaptable to play in more than one position because of the speed and style of modern day football? I'll throw that one to Graham. What do you think about that? Do they need to be more adaptable because of the speed and style of modern day football?
I mean, I suppose so. I suppose it would help our situation when you look at how small our squad is if we had certain players that could
it would be ideal if they could all play everywhere for us. But
I think the problem we've got is, and the reason I suppose that one's took us by surprise a bit, was the simple fact that I don't know if our players can play their actual position yet. So to think about, who was it? Was it Allardyce who tried Billy Jones at centre-half against Everton and got beat 6-2? I mean, imagine, it really pushed the shits up me, that, thinking about Billy Jones at centre-half. I suppose they do need to be more adaptable, but in reference to Sunderland, they need to adapt to the actual position they're playing at the minute and show they've got something to play where they're allegedly experts in. But I suppose for a basic answer, that they do need to be. It would certainly help us, but you know what? The players we've got should be able to adapt to this league. Like a lot of the players in that league are people who've played a lot of their careers in the Premiership, and they look like bog standard Championship players for me. And they really, really, really need to improve on their own position before we even consider doing anything else with them.
See, that's bang on. Like it's not necessarily, I don't think, about them being adaptable. Like they need to be able to. It's square pegs and square holes. We need people to play in the position that they're familiar with. For years and years, as Sunderland fans, we've seen players shoehorned into positions, like that they're not comfortable with. I'm not necessarily saying that's happening at the moment, but I would rather that we weren't having people who are trying to adapt into other positions. We need the people on the pitch to just play their own position. If we sign a left back, play him left back. Don't play him left midfield. Things like that.
There's a bit of a tinkering mentality going on there, isn't there? I think it's happening more and more as the years go by. People seem to assume that you can, because it is interesting to see that, like Graham said about Billy Jones at centre half, and like Donald Love as well in the midfield, and we've seen Rodwell. I know Rodwell was a centre back originally, but I mean, fuck me, he can't kick a ball, can he? So it's irrelevant what position you put him in. Oh God, we should talk about Rodwell actually. And when are we getting rid of Rodwell? When are we going to sell Rodwell? Because he was shite.
Can I ship him to some fucking Turkish club or something like that?
I was hoping someone from China would come in and be like, "Oh, Jack Rodwell, yeah," and just give them the reel of that season when everyone was comparing him to Ross Barkley.
Yeah, like, this is give Jack him a Rodwell. YouTube compilation from his time at Everton.
Linked with Libsyn, Sport Libsyn today. Sorry, Sport Lisbon.
He's been linked with them the last couple of days. I don't know whether it was just tenuous, but they were daft enough to buy quarters off us, weren't they? So,
I mean, if they're listening, he's really good. If anyone's listening from Lisbon, he's really good.
No one gets Jack Rodwell.
He's consistent as well. He's
very consistent. His speed, aggression, pace,
power. You always know what you're getting with him, Always know what you get. There's another one though. Here's another, because this is the inevitable conversation. Really, this is where everybody's mind's really at. This is what we're really thinking. This is what you can boil everything down to. And it comes from a bloke called J.E., but I like his tag, Kinky Kone. Nice, I like that. With the squad we have now, with very few, if any, to come in, do you think we have any chance of finishing inside the top 6? No, I don't. I honestly don't. I had some hope before the season started. I wasn't really going along with a lot of people who were just like, "Oh, it's the Championship, it's easy." When we had a couple of good results, I was just like, "Oh yeah, it's a piss easy, there's no worries." Now, looking at it, looking at the money we've got, or rather haven't got, the players we haven't got. I mean, I took away from the Leeds game that we needed at least 4 players, and I came out of the Barnsley game thinking, Christ, we need about 8 players. And every time I say we need more players, it turns out it dribbles down that Grayson has even less money to spend. So, yeah, I can't see it happening personally. Any of you guys, Gav, what do you reckon inside the top 6 going off current result? No one can say yes. There's no one here going to say yes to that question. Like, yeah, definitely top 6.
Nah, maybe not at this stage, but it's a funny league, and last time we were in here, we started the first 6 games absolutely horribly, and we ended up winning it. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. We've seen us do it. Newcastle last season had a bad start and won the league. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I'm saying is that I wouldn't take too much from what we've seen so far, other than the fact that we're doing new players. That can be fixed. Certainly be fixed in the next couple of days, provided the club are committed to doing so. I think that's the main worry.
You have to admit, though, in order to fix the problems we have in the next few days, it would be quite the fucking coup, wouldn't it? It would be quite a result from Grayson somehow. We'd all be sitting and being like, wow, well done, if he managed that.
It's going to take keen levels of deadline day sorcery in it to try and turn that kind of opinion round. But a couple of good signings does tend to cultivate everybody and get everyone back on track. I think there's probably not a Sunderland fan out there who doesn't think we're short. And the way to obviously recapture people's optimism, I guess, is to maybe sign players. That much is obvious. It's just a case of, although the club have been very strict on their stance of we are not funding this, or at least Ellis Short apparently is, we are not funding any more signings. Certainly from his pocket. We might have to, and I think some money has to come from somewhere. The fact the club made £30 million on a goalkeeper and not a penny of that's been spent yet does worry me at this stage. I didn't expect us to not spend any of it. I feel as though that we're selling ourselves short. There's certainly not a lot of problems there in terms of personnel. It's just 2 or 3 key positions, strengthen them with quality players at this level even, and we're going to be fine. But until we do so, it's hard to have any optimistic outlook. I just think they may be banking on getting a couple of decent loans in on deadline day and hoping that McNair and Watmore come back and are going to contribute heavily. And I think that's a lot of pressure to place on those players. And I do think that's maybe the mentality. They're waiting for Watmore to return and be this superstar at this level. Who knows how he's going to return? He might not be as quick. He might not have. His touch wasn't great before that, but it's going to take him a while to get on the ball and run again, because he's been out for such a long length of time. But I do feel that they're looking at the squad they've got and they're going, well, if he comes back fit and rare and he's got the right attitude as a type of person he is, he'll be a real big player for us.
And that's what they've designed themselves to. I see where you're coming from.
I've had that feeling for a couple of weeks now. I just think since the last deal, which was Reuter, I think was the last set player was signed, and that was before the season started. Since then, we've just rubbed our hands and went, well, we're going to wait till the last week of the transfer window, see what comes up. Other than that, we're going to get by on what we've got and hope that the lads who are injured can make an impact. And I just think that's a big risk. But obviously financially they're not prepared to put some weight behind a couple of decent transfers, which is clearly all we need. We need a winger, we need a centre forward. We'll probably need to replace Khazri, maybe with a number 10. We need a full back. Other than that, you look at that squad and you think that's all right, but there's a lot missing there. And until we see what happens over the next couple of days, obviously it's hard to tell where we're going to finish. But I wouldn't get too resigned not having a good finish this season just yet. It's still early. There's a lot of games left to play, but it's certainly nothing we can't fix in the next couple of days.
But nothing that if we really talk about, if we really ask ourselves and dig deep, we're not going to fix it, are we? I can't see, like what you said about Jordan Pickford there. We've said loads of times, and we've all said transfers work in a certain way. Do you know what I mean? No one was expecting 30 million to spend, but I was going on about it. I was going off about it really when he got sold. I still completely disagree with some of them. But when we sold him, I was like, what are we going to get? A maximum of 5-6 million out of that spend. And we haven't even got that. And that's what worries me, is that was my bargain basement sort of last ditch. That's the lowest I think, or I thought that we'd sink to, like selling your only real asset, your prized asset, for such a vast sum of money, and then giving your manager like a sixth of it to invest in the squad, which is obviously a terrible business model, and it's absolutely ridiculous that the club have even got to this stage, that this is what we're discussing. It's really fucking quite disgraceful. But yeah, I thought that 6 million would be enough. It would just be like it's just like the least you could do. Do you know what I mean? You would think that, like, even if you weren't into saving money, even if you weren't into reinvesting, even if what you wanted to do was cash in on all of your assets, you still wouldn't turn your nose up at reinvesting fucking 15%, 20% maybe of that. You know, it's nothing, especially when you're looking at goalies. It seems to me that they've just got cheap everywhere, and this just smacks of Martin Bain. Actually, while we're on it, this just smacks of him, because that's what he does. I don't know why any of us were sitting here thinking that he was going to have or we were going to have even the 15 million that was bandied around. I don't think it was ever going to be that. People talk about what Martin Bain's done and how great he is and how great he is with fans and all the great things he's doing for the club. You know what I see, right? I see 70 people who've been sacked because the 11 players and 5 or 6 people at the club around them did a shit job. I've seen those people sacked as a result of someone else's fucking wank efforts, frankly, which is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. But what's worse than that is then everyone turns around and says about the man who's been brought in to cut these people from the payroll and to strip us of our assets, about Martin Bain, that he's brilliant, he's he's fantastic. Oh, he's got to do this though. Look at all the shit we had to work with. Oh, he got dealt such a bad hand. I don't give a fuck what his hand was. He's taken millions of pounds to come into this job. He's not a fucking pauper. No one who makes these decisions, they don't rely on their weekly wage packets or anything like that. The fact that they don't... They think the only thing they think there's something that will fix it is this weak ass fucking fan engagement over 3 months, 4 months, something like that, when he first came in. You know, and shitty little things, going to the Nissan factory, all this crap that's like a huge PR campaign. And he's even given up on that to the point where he's sending these crap emails out to people who are actually concerned fans, sending him open letters. Whatever you think about open letters, it at least means they're passionate. And they're getting these letters back, these emails, and it's shite. It's just utter shit. It looks like it's been written 6 months before that, and it's just prepared. It's in a little statement. It's ready to go out. Oh, don't worry. Oh, thank you for the worry. You know, don't be concerned. We're doing our best, and we just want this club's great, and the people are great, and just fuck off. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I'm sick of hearing that. I'm sick of hearing all the fucking guff, man. Yeah, platitudes. Exactly. It's lip service. These people don't do anything except pay lip service. So when you look at something like this scenario, that you could argue that Grayson's walked into it. He has walked into it. He must have known. He must have asked every other manager around him that he knew, everyone he knew close to Sunderland Football Club, what am I getting into here? And I very much doubt that a single one turned around to him and said, oh yeah, it's brilliant, you'll get loads of money there and everything will be great. So no one said that. He knew what he was getting into, kind of. But I don't doubt it for a second that when Grayson goes, and I think he will go, sadly, I don't think he's going to be the man that's going to stay with us, because I don't think I think it's starting to show in his attitude. I don't think he's very bitter like some managers who come out and say, oh well, I wasn't promised it, or I was promised this and I'm not getting this, and they say it in press conferences and things like that to try and put pressure on their owner. I don't think he's that sort of person. He seems like quite a reserved guy. He seems quite quiet, and that's his attitude, fair enough. But I think when he goes, we're going to have that same fucking thing come out of him, oh well, promises were made and they weren't kept. I was told I'd have 15 million to work with. In a scenario where really you shouldn't have anything less than 30, 40, let's face it, if you want to build a new squad for the Championship, and that's what we needed to do, you shouldn't have any less than 30, 40 million. And then you've got your owner and your chief executive, both your bosses, selling your most prized asset from under you. He probably knew it was going to happen. And then you're thinking, oh, well, 30 million, is that how much you can get from him? Oh, well, it's not so bad. We get a couple of decent keepers in for competition. I'll use some of that money to reinvest in the squad. And they've gone, yeah, no worries, Simon. But then what's happened? We sold Jordan Pickford, and where's the money? He hasn't got it. So when he's then gone, he's got his little black book, hasn't he? Most of the people that these managers are bringing in, there's this pattern. It's been going on for over a year now. The managers know there's no money, but they say, oh, don't worry about it. I know such and such. I know this person. I know that agent. I've got all the connections in football. Don't worry about it. So they do that, and then people don't want to come to us because they know that we're on our knees as a club, and they don't have to help us. Oh, man, I'm not going to keep ranting about that, but bloody hell. James, what do you make of it, mate? I'm sorry for ranting about it. I'm sitting here.
you've hit every nail on the head there, if I'm honest.
He's just a wanker. They're all just a bunch of wankers in reality, and that's what really pisses me off. And everyone thinks it, but no one wants to say it. I'm sick of hearing everyone say that Martin Bain's great, because he's not. He's just fired a load of people. That's all he does. He doesn't do anything beyond that.
The hypocrisy of Martin Bain as well, to fire people when he's on his inflated salary. And he did very well at Rangers as well. I've written a couple of articles on this, and nothing gets me blood boiling more than Martin Bain. So I kind of agree with everything you've said there, Damo. And let's not forget, this is the bloke that kind of sent everybody on a jolly to New York last season, and then the team didn't win a game after that, and then he announced redundancies in the same week, I think. So I don't really think he has much of a clue what's going on. He's clearly been brought in to cut costs, and as you say, these kind of platitudes initially were kind of to disguise that, and I think people and fans of the club have been really, really misled.
I'd agree with that. What would concern me would be like looking at what we have invested, in inverted commas, in the squad this year. I think, not to be negative, but are they genuinely happy with us just staying in the Championship to consolidate for a couple of years? Those signings to me suggest, right, we've got no money and they're not going to show the ambition to bounce straight back up. They want to consolidate all the debt. They want to get rid of it all. And if we can stay in the Championship and for a couple of seasons and then try and get back once all that debt's gone, that's what we'll do. To me, it says the kind of investment we've had this summer, that's all it says to me.
See,
I don't think there's any ambition.
I agree with most of what you just said, but I don't see the end of it. I don't see that then we'll get back up. Do you know what I mean?
that's blind optimism.
Yeah, that's
just
that's what you think. I mean, we spoke about something. I think I did a little article about it, but it's been brought up a few times. It's about what we're doing for our actual future. You know what I mean? It's like we were told when Moyes came in and everything was pretty fucking rough and depressing. We were told that we just had to grit our teeth and bear it because this was part of a period of change in which the club would be converted into a sustainable business model and our recruitment would be fixed and we'd scout for the future. And none of that has happened. We've fought more fires. We've fought fire after fire after fire since that decision was made. And it wasn't made by any of our managers. It was only made by one fucking person. There's one person who can make that decision. No one else. It's Ellis Short. Ellis Short is the only man who can make that decision. And because of him, because of his poor tenure, we cannot support ourselves in the future. We have no decent scouting system set up. We have no connections to anyone. Half the footballing world fucking hates us. Agents bend us over a barrel. It's pathetic. No one wants to come to us, and I don't blame them, because why would you? Why would you do this? What self-respecting agent would send you to Sunderland right now? What single one? I mean, this comes from Ellis Short, a man who tried to sell the club, couldn't sell the club, and then turned around and said that he's going to support the club. Do you know what I mean? It's the most fucking ridiculous concept ever. I can't even believe that people lap that up. It's just utter nonsense, total bollocks again. Like, oh yeah, I love this club. Oh, the club's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to sell the club. Oh no, can't sell the club. Oh yeah, I love the club. I love the club's fantastic. It's just, what a load of fucking crap. What a load of crap. Sorry, James.
It annoys me that they have this, as James said, they've got this blind optimism from the fans, and they know that Sunderland's such a passionate area, and it's true of every club, I suppose, as well, that no matter kind of what they put us through, they know they're going to have customers, because that's how we're seen these days, customers at the end of it, or at least, you know, some customers to keep buying shirts, because that's the nature of the beast, and it smacks of kind of like unethicalness that they like bank on that and kind of misuse us as fans and see us as customers now.
So, Gav, you very much involved like in grassroots football and that for a while, or at that stage you coached a few teams and things like that. You're very passionate about it. What are you thinking about the scouting ability, or the lack of knowledge that we actually have as a fan base with regards to Sunderland scouting?
I guess I can only speak on a certain level from my experience of being involved, like saying grassroots football. But from when the kids, obviously Sunderland have an area they're allowed to hit, in terms of scouting, and they're in competition with really only Middlesbrough and Newcastle. I know that Hartlepool used to have a proper academy, but once they were relegated, that changes things. So Sunderland are really competing with a couple of teams for the same group of kids. And from the age of 5, the kind of it's like a farm, it's like a production line. The kids are brought in just because they show a tiniest little bit of ability, and they're judged from day one, and it spirals from there, I guess. And by the time it gets to the stage where these players are needed, obviously they're looking at them seriously as maybe professionals when they start hitting their teens, and they're being considered whether to be worthy of scholarships and things like that. By that point, they've already been burnt out from the amount of shit that goes their way, I guess. I could spend all day talking about the ills of grassroots football, but I think on a local level it's not great. Sunderland did have a good reputation up until a couple of years ago. I believe Newcastle are starting to pull that back round. Middlesbrough have always done well with their kids, but I mean, on a local level, we don't do a great job scouting wise, in my opinion. I think the kids are developed the wrong way. I think obviously a big issue with that is parents and things like that. And I guess that spirals up to the first team. You look at how we scout, certainly lower leagues and non-leagues. I think there's more could be done. Like there's definitely players out there who would contribute. There's definitely players out there that would be able to offer us something in the Championship, who are playing in League 1, League 2, and maybe even in the Conference. Because you look at, there's quite a lot of players now playing at the top level who've been through the National League and have been released from academies and made their name lower down. Why aren't we at least trying to scout players and bring them in that could make an impact on our first team? There's Duncan Watmore there, for instance. Is probably the last player we did that with. Came from Altrincham, obviously a very handy player. When he was a young lad there, scored goals, came here, has developed well because he's got the right attitude. I mean, that if we are going to cut corners in terms of recruitment, I'd certainly be looking to at least League 1, League 2 and see is there anybody down the leagues that could make an impact. And you look at the guy we were linked with the other week from Lincoln, the centre half. I think he went to another Championship team. I can't remember who. He went for a small fee, and you just think, like, could we not have even stretched to buy someone like that? We were linked with them. It's someone like Marcus Maddison at Peterborough, out of our reach. I don't think so. I think he's a player that could make an impact. Local lad, doing very well for himself in League 1, still really young. And I just think, right, we're skinned. But could we not even stretch to players like that? I don't even think we're looking at players like that as the problem. I don't think we're looking into League 1, League 2. Certainly not with any conviction. And I think we've got to write this window off. This window now, we aren't going to be bringing anybody like that in. Certainly not anybody that can make an impact in the first team. Like I alluded to before, I think we're going to wait till the last day and just see what appears. From a scouting point of view,
didn't he, about waiting until the Premier League clubs have done their business.
I just think it's short-sighted and it doesn't bode well, really. We obviously know which positions need to be strengthened. Grayson obviously does, but I mean, is it good practice waiting and just seeing what comes up? All right, we've probably been given an inkling that Jordan Rhodes is available if we haven't already inquired for him. But I mean, is that good practice? Is he really what we need? I mean, yes, very capable goal scorer in the Championship. Had a couple of bad experiences recently. Grayson's record with those type of players is actually quite decent, but is it short-sighted from a recruitment standpoint? I would say so. Absolutely. I think it's. We obviously knew we were going down. We knew that from probably the second game of the season when David Moyes said it. I think where he was brought in on the proviso that we might be relegated, would be cutting corners. I think they've known for such a long time that this was coming, that would be playing right now in the Championship, that it's not acceptable for us to not be prepared for this transfer window. We haven't looked prepared at all. Grayson came in, obviously gave them a list of targets, was able to get some of them very early doors. Other than that, the scouting's been non-existent, I would say. Certainly, you don't. What level of scouting goes into someone like Ross McCormack, someone who ridiculous amount of money have been spent on them over the years. You know what I mean? You don't really have to scout players like that. You know what they're going to bring.
It's like someone who doesn't really pay any attention to football, playing FIFA. Do you know what I mean? You go on FIFA and you're given the option on who to recruit, and you're just like, you look up all the domestic household names, and it's like that. I agree with you there completely.
Sort by past goals.
Yeah.
Sign the top one.
I mean, with Jordan Rhodes, I mean, if that is actually something that's going to happen, if he could emulate his form in his early years for Blackburn, that'd be great. But again, we've seen that these players who have some sort of, if you can call it, pedigree in the Championship don't necessarily come out firing. I mean, what Gav said there, it's interesting because we discussed it when it happened. When Moyes brought in Don Love, Paddy McNair and Gilabodji, and we all said then, well, this is for the Championship. He's buying players for the Championship. It's very clear. And he was saying, I'm building a core of players. And it's like, yeah, it's a core for the Championship, mate. It's a core for the lower divisions. And now we're at this stage where, technically speaking, we should have been prepared. And that core should now be coming if the plan was all well made, that core should now be coming through into the team and should be fully capable and ready to deal with what's going on. Basically, should be able to slot straight into this league. But obviously, because we lost Moyes, and probably because that plan was bullshit from the beginning, that isn't actually happening. So but it kind of is as well, because like we've mentioned, sitting here waiting for Paddy McNair to come back. You know, I can't wait for Paddy. Don't worry, lads, it's Paddy McNair. It's like, Christ almighty. Duncan Watmore, certainly. But as Gav said, no. Whether he's going to come back faster, he probably won't come back faster. He's not got bionic legs. He might come back slower. And he always had a problem with looking up, and he had a couple of issues with his first touch. So relying purely on a player like that, who essentially his virtues are his pace and his doggedness, that's all well and good. But we need a real predator, like we said again, like it's been already said in this pod. We were spoiled by Jermaine Defoe. We sort of assumed that we were going to replicate Jermaine Defoe's form in 2 or 3 half-decent attacking forwards. But we haven't got that so far. And the best thing we've got out of that is McGeady. And Graban's been quite good as well, to be honest. I think he'll come good. I think over the course of a season, he'll get more goals. I certainly think he's a better purchase than Vaughan.
I think, like I said before, once you bring in a few more options in attack, players like that will obviously be able to slot in and out more comfortably. It's too much to rely on him and Vaughan to play every week and expect anything of them. I think Vaughan is really underwhelmed. I know he wasn't coming in and people expecting miracles of him, but he's done nothing. Like, not even in pre-season. Works very hard, and he's a couple of nice little assists and, you know, had a hand in a few goals, particularly Chef Wed, for instance. His hand in that goal was great, but I don't think that's why we were signing him. We signed a player who just scored 24 goals for Bury. Yeah. In a struggling team, may I add. So regardless of what league he was playing in, he was obviously playing in a team who weren't playing on the front foot and weren't attacking teams like maybe, I don't know, maybe we were expecting we might do so for at the start of the season. But I mean, he's come into this team, certainly had opportunities and not put anything away. So I think once we do sign a striker or maybe 2 strikers, it'll be easier just to phase him out and use him for his real purpose, which I think is just coming on and working hard in games. But Graben's a decent enough player. He's shown it over his career. Yeah. He can score goals at this level. It's just we're asking a bit too much of some of them. I think he wasn't signed to play every week. If he was signed to play every week, then I'm very, very worried. But I don't think he was. I think he was signed to be one of a number of players who can rotate around once we have our squad in place. What more is, obviously we're expecting a lot of him. But I mean, if he can even pick up from where he left off, I guess he was doing all right when he got injured. If he can come straight back in and because I do believe he's got in him to do something like that. He's certainly a hard worker. I think he will do well at this level, but we can't expect too much of him, surely. We need the big take from certainly this conversation, I would say, is that we do really, really need a couple of players, quality players that are going to make an impact from the off. And if we don't get them by the time the deadline ends on Thursday, then I'm resigned to us having a pretty average season where we don't really mill around the bottom, but we'll certainly just be there or thereabouts in the middle and maybe win 1 and 3 and just work hard but don't do enough against the weaker teams who are going to play on the front foot against a team like Sunderland who thinks it's a big game. I think we're going to struggle against those types of teams if we don't have the quality in our squad. And a lot of teams in this league have added to what they've already got, and I can see Borough and Villa being up there come the end of the season. I know Villa have had a bad start. Borough's been pretty average, but they've brought players in who are going to succeed at this level over 46 games. We haven't. We've maybe brought in one or two, and it's just depressing, really. Depressing talking about, but it's something that can certainly change. We've just got to cross our fingers, I guess, from today and hope that something does happen.
Well, I think it's fair to say that we can write off, as you say, write off this window, and therefore we'll write off this part of the season. So we'll wait until the next transfer window, and then maybe we'll look at bringing in someone with some sort of impact. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but we have something rather special coming up for you, because transfer deadline day, we're going to get together live, and we're going to be sitting there for a good couple of hours, and we're going to take questions from Twitter, we're going to take questions on YouTube. So yeah, be sure to check out the Roker Report for more information on that as it happens. Right, thanks very much for joining us, and it's the international break now, so we're talking about another 2 weeks until we face off with our next opponent. So that'll be Sheffield United. Oh, looking forward to it. It's so glamorous, these games. It's so fun being in the Championship. Yeah, so until then, you take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and this is the Roker Report signing off.